evening, everybody. Welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D. I am joined tonight by our good friends Draco Argentis and Matt from Foul Ball Productions, and we are talking the greatest show on television right now and probably in the last 30 years, The Expanse, Season 5, Episode 5. All right, guys, real quick, why don't you go around the horn, introduce yourselves for those who might be new to us. Draco.
Well, the great big red disc is Draco.
Oh, that's a good way to start the stream. Draco, we're losing you. Why don't you back out and back in? Matt, say hello to the folks.
Hi, I'm Matt from Foul Ball Productions. Great to see you guys. I'm an Expanse fanatic. I've been on this show for I guess like a year and a half now. I adore it. I've watched every episode multiple times. I cover every single episode on my channel. It's the most successful thing I've ever done on YouTube, and I adore it. I love talking about it. So that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, you betcha, man. Just another red shirt. Thank you for joining us this evening, my friend. You and your wrench are always appreciated, my brother. And Alex, how are you? How are you, man? Good to see you. I suppose it's getting on early morning for you, my brother. And, oh, gosh, is it Waisale? I hope I said that right. If I totally butchered that, I'm terribly sorry. Well, all right. Again, thanks everybody for being here tonight because it is just an absolute thrill to be able to talk about a show that we all universally love. A lot of times we're covering things that we're pretty critical of or, talking about things that just didn't work for us or weren't going right. Like, my ongoing coverage of The Stand right now is going downhill in a big hurry. Can't say I'm particularly excited about the direction of that series. So having
this show.
That is not this show. This breath of fresh air that is The Expanse is just brilliant. And then, okay, all right, Plagueis, I know who you are. We play a mobile game together. So,
oh, cool!
It's good to have you, my friend. Glad you made it. I know that he really enjoyed this episode. We were chatting in Discord a little bit earlier, but So I mean, not going to bury the excellence of this episode. I'm going to put it down just a smidge from episode 4, but it was still absolutely outstanding. I'm rolling with a 9 out of 10 on this one, man. Absolutely. I went 10 out of 10 on episode 4 because it was just mind-blowingly awesome. Where are you coming in on this one, Matt?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I thought episode 4 was like monumental. I watched it like twice, and even the second time I was amazed how swift it went. I was like, it was so efficiently written. And this episode I really enjoyed. It was just there were some things I didn't love. It's not to say that it was bad. There's just some things I just was like, okay, didn't love that quite as much as the rest of the season, but it was still great. I say the thing that like I'm empathetic to the story on, I just don't love is Naomi.
I was having the same conversation before the stream started with Draco, and that exact same thing. So,
yeah,
where you rolling in on this one, Draco?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say you talk about that, but yes, this episode it's still got all of the beats. It's still got everything that I want to see in the show. Naomi's story is harsh, and it's written less than all the other beats in the show. She's included in the best parts of the show at the very end of the episode. But this is staying right up there for me. I'm still interested. I'm still in it. That's what I want to see from the show. I want to see it continue, and I'm hoping for Naomi's arc to get even better. I mean, at the end there, it really did, but you have to go through the rest of that character development in the show, and it wasn't the best. But the rest of it, I'm right up there again, 9, 10, somewhere. I'm almost 9 on it.
It was like one note, I think, was the only issue for me. And like there was some, it did move, but she's just so like anxious and stressed out the whole time. And I get it. She's in an anxious, stressed out situation. It's just something about it that's like, I kind of feel like I haven't loved Naomi from season 4 on. And this is just kind of more of that. And like, I don't, I love, she's still part of the Rashi. She's still Naomi. I just kind of like, I'm not as in love as I am with everyone else. But that's like, it's such a minor step down.
Fair enough. And it's and I mean, there's very little bad to say about this. So maybe I'll just kind of pop into this piece. And the thing that, and certainly from season 4 and into season 5, my girlfriend in particular really has an extremely negative reaction to Naomi. I mean, she fucking hates her. So, there were a few things in this episode, like where she was talking with the Belter, and I probably forget the character's name.
The tattoos on his head.
Yeah, the bigger guy, and she was telling him, basically that. Yeah, thank you, Draco. That basically you screwed up raising my son, and it's like, well. Yeah, but you abandoned him as a toddler, and you haven't seen him until he's now a grown man. And
it was a weird beef. It was a weird beef.
You're getting mad at somebody for raising him to be a pissed off Belter like he is.
Right.
I'm having trouble there.
I'm with you. It was odd. It was off-putting, and it was a little. And it was like, I can understand like that. Probably Naomi like. Whatever was going on with her and Marco was probably really dangerous and really intense. And I think Naomi's. She got some blood on her hands. So I understand that. But it was a little like the way she took it. So it was like, I don't know. It was just a weird grievance. Like I empathized with her. But I think I don't know. It's like more like you went the wrong path and you took him with you, I think would have been more my grievance. Not that you should have. It's like, why are you a piece of shit now too? Like you're a murderer and my son's a murderer for knowing you. Which I think was what she was trying to get across. It's just, there's something off about Naomi's character now. Like I was saying it today, there's no joy in her anymore whatsoever. And I understand that like we couldn't get that now, but we haven't gotten it in so long that I just kind of feel like a little less close to her. I feel a little less interested in her. Everything's intense, everything's dark, everything's like me. And you're just kind of like, okay, I'm just pulling back a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a good comment that you've got here, but it's and I think that those of us who, because Matt and I have not picked up the books, or at least I've only experienced it through the show and not read the books myself.
I've read 3.
You've read 3. Okay, so I feel like maybe there was more context in the books that would have made us a bit more sympathetic to what was going on here.
Even though we don't know it, there's always more context in the book. This has been a long-standing gripe of mine that every adaptation from book to television show or movie cannot hope to match the level of immersion and context that you can get from a book. The best you can do is weave in a whole bunch of work into it. The show does well, but it still suffers from that, as was exampled by our previous episode, not knowing just how much was going on as returning to Earth, Clarissa Mao and Amos actually built a connection. But that's last episode. We're going to keep going forward.
Waisale, it's based on a novel series that's actually based on a role-playing tabletop game that these guys started, which is actually based on their initial ambition to make a like sci-fi World of Warcraft. So it's like a really long, interesting process of how they got here. But yes, there are 9 books. I think there's going to be 9 books, and there are only going to be 6 seasons of TV. So if you want to see the story all the way through, you got to read the books.
Very true. Very true. But yeah, I mean, that's my only gripe about the episode, at the end of the day. Unbeheld makes an interesting comment, about her backstory wasn't explored in the earlier seasons. Identity being built on being a genius level engineer, and when you take her out of that context, it makes it hard. Don't know what to make of her, so it makes it harder to relate, which is a fair observation.
It's a good point. That's a very sharp point. Yeah, so that's true.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
here. I just want to beat in here. I'm going to do a transfer over, so I'm not going to be as accessible. So you guys keep talking.
Okay. See you in a minute. So do you want to walk through it like beat by beat?
Yeah, let's roll through beat by beat on the events. I mean, so we open up on this one. Well, I'll let you kick it off, man.
No, actually, I kind of forgot exactly where we opened. It was really, I was like, nice. I forgot. We open up with Alex and Bobby, right?
Yes. Yeah, and we pop in
with them chasing those ships, and then it turns out, by the end, it's that like the ships, the Belter ships, are the weapons that are being sold. I mean, the Martian ships. Yeah.
And it was, well, actually, that you skipped ahead slightly. We do get to see Drummer again at the start of this episode.
That's right. Thank you.
Which was great because we didn't see her in episode 4 at all.
Yeah.
And so popping back in to see what her and her crew, and they're identifying them as Drummer's faction now, which I like.
Yeah.
And what was really cool to me about this scene, and it felt like it was intended to show the viewer, is sort of the split in the Belters, right? Because her own crew that's loyal to her and follows her has very divided opinions about what Inaros did to Earth.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been such a strength of the writing in this show forever, is the fact that the Belters are not one united people, that they have different factions, they have different points of view, they have different ways of dealing with the fact that they're Belters. And I think that that's utter genius, and it was further explored with that crew. And ultimately, I think what they did really well was show that Drummer's in charge. You know what I mean? Like, Drummer is the boss bitch, and I like watching her like take control and also stand up for Fred Johnson's memory. That was very touching. I think it's fun. I always like that kind of inner politics stuff. I think it's really cool.
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. It was, I really enjoyed seeing, because like you said, she's the boss bitch. She is in charge. But even within all these people who are loyal to her, you've got these extremely divided opinions. And, and there was some commentary that they went through where they were talking about how basically, this kind of thing was going to happen anyway, right? Because of how they're treating Belters over such a long period of time. I mean, there was even a comment made to the extent like, well, if it hadn't been him, it would have been somebody else.
And also what they pointed out was the fact that everyone in the inners is going to look at Belters all the same now anyway, which I thought was interesting.
Yes.
That's, it's like that kind of, it's a fait accompli. Like, let's just be, now we can just be terrorists because they're going to think we're all terrorists anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I mean, the fact that he did it was shifting people's opinions, which is good, right? So it's the way that's making the politics in the belt change is, I mean, it's interesting as hell.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just liked it. It was effective. I loved it.
Love it.
Yeah. And plus I love Drummer. I mean, how,
I mean, I'm like exclaiming when she's on screen. I'm just like professing my love to her through the LCD screen. I adore her.
do you have like Clorox wipes to clean it up?
It's all spiritual.
Okay.
I'm glad she's back though. It was a noted absence last week because her character has been steadily building since season 2. You know, like season 3, she had that big part with, being Fred Johnson. Season 4, she was kind of her own woman. And now she's so far off, like on her own, that she has her own ship. And it was like, oh, wow, we didn't see Naomi last week. Like, no, I'm sorry. Kara G, drummer, last week. And it was noted. And I was like, oh, where's my boo? I want to see her.
Yeah. You are absolutely devoted to that lady, and I understand.
100%.
Yep. And, Wasali makes an interesting comment that a lot of the Belters look Middle Eastern that we see, particularly in Inaros' faction, which is, is that an allegory about, Western power projecting in the Middle East? I mean, maybe. It's certainly I hadn't thought of that myself, but
I think it's informed by world events. I mean, that's something I was talking about in my stream earlier today, is that what's so great about science fiction is that you can touch on these ideas without making it a one-for-one comparison. Yes. Saying, oh, well, this is about war in the Middle East, or this is about, the Iran-Contras. Like, it's kind of about all of it. It's like the nature of people. And then I think when it's a separate, like an allegorical portrayal, then you can kind of really identify, you can discuss it and intellectually think about it objectively instead of like having any kind of subjective connection to it. And that's what I think the genius of science fiction is. And I think they do it excellently here.
Absolutely. Don't disagree at all, man. And then we see Amos, right? After we break away from Drummer's faction. And Amos is, practically buried alive at the bottom of the prison.
Yeah. That was so interesting. That's the part that stuck out to me the most in this episode, I think. Was that whole sequence, with him and Tiny.
Yeah, Tiny, yes. You knew
he was coming back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when you saw him in episode 3, that was not a scene that wasn't going to have a payoff.
Absolutely.
It is.
And I knew, like, the more it went on, I'm like, I don't think this guy's making it out of this episode. Like, I don't see Amos letting this guy live.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't expect he would either.
No, but I loved it. I thought it was so interesting. Like, so they find themselves in that situation, and now all these guards and prisoners need to work together. And they had to get the big brute lunatic, and he had to help him. And Amos figured it out, and they had to pull open each thing. And Tiny's just getting more and more psychotic.
Yes.
It's like the clock's ticking. He throws that guard off the thing. Oh, he fell. He fell.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what he fell.
Absolutely, no one believed that. But he's like, oh, we fucking need him. And then when they got to the top, man, that was a hell of a reveal, huh?
Dude, yeah. They get to the top. And then, of course, like you say, everybody knows the psychotic moment's coming, and sure as shit, it did.
No kidding. No kidding. And like he lit up, like he strangles out the one guard, right? Tosses him. Then the girl like gets her gun thrown, and she ends up. He grabs Amos by the neck. Carries, call me Tiny one more time.
And Amos is just completely futilely hitting the guy.
I love it, man. You just will not go down, that guy. And then,
Amos can normally hold his own.
Yeah. And usually there's nobody that can stand up against the dude. I mean, just, think back just earlier this season when he's on the Belter transport to Luna, right? And he beat the crap out of those guys that were trying to make him pay for protection.
Yep.
Compared to what happened to him against Tiny.
Right. I loved it too. I loved his, like, he did that like judo flip or whatever, where, he like yanked him over his head.
Suplexed him.
Yeah, he suplexed.
Oh, that's great.
That was awesome.
I loved it.
After the guard Rona shoots him using the other guard's gun, holding onto the other guard's hand, so that the biometrics would work.
That was really cool. And I really liked the little detail, but the scream that Tiny lets out was so authentic. It was such a scary, like a scared, terrified, I'm going to die scream, because sometimes in movies, they'll always have like the tough bad guy go like, oh no, I'm dying. Instead of like that, like that horrified, like deep like in your soul terror. And I like the way they nailed it. Like he sounded horrified as he went down that shaft.
Yes. Oh, it was great.
They didn't use the Wilhelm scream.
No, they did not. No, they did not.
He impacted more than once on the way down, and it was a nice little touch. It's one of the things that Shankar gets so right in every episode, right? There's little touches here and there that he tosses in that, small details that could easily be not done or missed or skipped or what have you, but he makes sure they're there.
I think it's Godard or Truffaut. It's like one of those famous French filmmakers from the French New Wave who says that film's a collection of details. And, I think The Expanse is a perfect example of that. And Shankar doesn't overlook many.
No. I think back to Avasarala, who wasn't in this episode.
No, I was just noting that in my brain. Yes.
When she was pouring some tea or coffee or whatever that was when she was meeting with Amos earlier this season, and the way that it poured much more slowly than it would have on Earth because of the gravity differences, right? It's the little touches that they always get right in this show.
Always. I love that about them. It's like, I pointed that out on one of my streams, like with the way like the liquid kind of like slowly settled in the glass, like, in those earlier episodes, like you would, if it was just a casual viewer, you wouldn't necessarily notice something like that. You could skip right past that and not really think about it. And like, who would be like, that's bad science. But they take the time to make it sure that it's like that. It's like, man, you guys really care. And I love watching a show that really cares.
They do, man. And this is so Unbeheld. This has been, we try not to talk about this much because we're all so, nobody really knows what actually happened with Cass Anvar. The only details we've got is there's some kind of allegation, right? And we know the guy's gone after the season, and I don't think you can recast Cass Anvar, so they're going to have to change the story somehow, where he either dies at the end of season 5, or if he's good. That's almost what you have to do, really.
Personally, as much as it would pain me to see it, I would rather him be recast just because I like the character and I want the character to continue. It sucks because I actually think this is maybe Cass Anvar's best season with Alex. I think
he's been good.
He's been great, and he really grasped the character really well this season. Not that he hasn't before, but he really is in tune with it this time. So it sucks that this is his last season with it.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I guess the novelists are in the writer's room, so if they wanted to make a dramatic choice, like they kill him off, they could probably handle it. But the source material probably follows the rest of the books with him alive, presumably. So I don't know. It'd be a pretty dramatic choice to get rid of him completely.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have him recast personally. I'd rather see him change the story from the book line to, because you can't let him die off screen. You can't just have him sort of go off somewhere or whatever. Yeah. So you almost have to give him a death. And if that's the way you go, it's funny that Unbeheld brought it up, because one of the things that I thought in today's episode was we may have seen his replacement. And that's Bull.
You think that they would kind of take whatever storyline Alex was going to have and make it Bull's?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because this skips us a little bit further ahead in the episode, but they're trying to get off Tycho. To track down the ship that attacked him. The Rossi's going to intercept and take him the fuck out.
Sure.
And they're about to fire up, and they're walking into the Rossi, and Holden asks about who his pilot is. Bull's got a couple guys with him, and Bull tells him, "You're looking at him, right?" And he steps up to the pilot's seat, and that made me wonder if Bull's our new pilot.
That's a good point. I don't think it's something that they would have consciously set up in this season, because this season was shot before any of the allegations came out. So, but it would be a nice, savvy, convenient, carry on, a continuation. That would be an interesting way to go about it, Jake.
Yeah, and I think the fandom's probably pretty split on the answer to this question overall. Dave, thanks for joining the stream, by the way. Good to see you, my friend. Dave would prefer that he be recast. And I don't know. It's hard to say what would be better, right? Because I think Cass Anvar has been so good in the role, and recasting 6 seasons in is tough.
Yeah, for one season too. It'll only be one season.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough call.
Part of it is that we don't know what happened. There have been a lot of people who have deserved this. To further this question, there's been a lot of people who've deserved the outcomes of this Me Too movement.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely, right.
But there is enough of us thinking, especially with, I mean, you're looking at 3 guys talking here. In the current climate, and we're not going to get any sort of political on this, but the idea is that we don't know what happened. A lot of people have had issues brought against them that they've done very simple things that, and here's my point, they could have apologized for and moved on from. But there is an idea now that the smallest thing must not be countenanced. It must not be allowed. So they're going to completely fail that person, cancel them, and move on. I'm wondering if it would be possible for, I mean, did he do it so bad that Cass Anvar did something worthy of he must be removed because we cannot countenance him? Or could he not simply make a statement and he would be under the frickin' microscope? Because if you do such things, you deserve a certain amount of naughty.
Yeah, I mean, it does depend on what he did, and if anything, okay, because there's been a number of, I look at Johnny Depp, right? That was bullshit. He didn't do anything.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
at least he was playing bad, but he was trumped over and over again. Not that kind of trumped people. He was raised again and again by the things that happened from her side, from our beloved shit the bed.
I will say, when it comes to Kaz, it's not just one allegation. There's a whole Reddit thread compiled of all the different allegations, and it's like a lot. Like, I'm not saying that means anything. I'm just saying it's a little it's a little more unique. Like, you have like one allegation come out against.
Let's just put it this way. Bill Cosby was a bad boy. How many of the things that were actually levied against him did he actually do? We know that he deserved to be put away because he did some crap. But a whole bunch of bandwagon was put up behind him too. We don't know how much that's real.
I mean we don't. Cosby definitely deserved what he got. But how many of the allegations were real? We really don't know.
You don't know, but when you hear the same allegation with the same circumstances over and over, it's kind of hard to be like, like what's the common thread here? It's like people who didn't know each other describe the same behavior. It's like, that seems like hard.
That seems pretty legit.
That's why he deserved it.
That's
why he deserved it.
And that, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it with Alex, with Cass. I mean, but it's a lot of allegations. So I'm no lawyer, but I just say it starts to be like, it doesn't look good when it's also people that worked on the show, people that were like crew members.
Definitely lends credence. I mean, if he did it, he deserves gone. Make no mistake, right? But I have no idea. I haven't seen any details.
And he's
awful quiet.
and as far as I know, he's never said anything about it. He's never publicly addressed it, which is, if I was innocent, I feel like I would never shut up about how innocent I was.
Yeah, that's fair. So I don't know, man. I think I'd rather see the character exit personally. I mean, Unbeheld made a good point about Game of Thrones having gotten away with a lot of recasting. I mean, they definitely did.
What's interesting that The Dario guy was the most ridiculous thing. That guy walked away for like Transporter 4 or some ridiculous thing.
Yeah. Oh, the guy that got to replace him was better.
He was better, but it's still ridiculous that you would leave for that. It's like to go be in a fucking sequel of a franchise no one watches. Like, okay, good luck.
Have fun with that.
I think he turned out to be the villain in Deadpool, though, so it must have worked out.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Total aside.
But, I am thinking about one thing on this episode, right? So Naomi definitely, so she's stuck with Inaros, right? She gets dragged out there by Philip, and she manages to, it's kind of a weird interaction that's going on out there with Inaros, right? So he is clearly in Martian hardware.
Yes.
Right? I mean, unquestionably,
no question.
He is in Martian hardware, and we kind of get the explanation of how that's the case from Alex and Bobby, right? Because they were trailing the the Martian general, and they see just his flagship take off when they're watching him meet up with the Belters.
Yeah.
And then they realize, what you were talking about earlier, that the sail was the ships.
Yeah. Yeah, that was intense. And it's weird that I didn't put that together, because Marcos is clearly riding in a Martian ship. And then in this episode, they make it very clear.
You see the galley.
Yeah, you see the galley.
It's one of the details. It's one of the details that in the previous episode, when Philip brings her on board, this ship is clean. This ship is straightforward. This ship is a ship of war. This ship is a ship of Mars. It's not said. It's not brought up. It's just an observational detail.
And
it's
that's
a nerd thing.
It's weird that it was lost on me, because this show has done that so thoroughly over the seasons, where it makes each planets, if you will, ships look so distinct. And it's weird that I didn't notice that. But then as it's like walking through it, you're like, oh yeah, obviously it's a Martian ship.
But you also get the note as you were. I'm sorry. I feel like I stomped on you or something like that when you were talking about they go into the galley, and at a certain point in that scene, Inaros tells Sin to throw away this Martian shit, the stuff that they're eating.
Yeah,
it's just another detail pointing to, yes, they are in a Martian ship with Martian rations.
Yep. Yes, and God, the galley looked almost exactly like the Rossi, but not quite.
Why?
Right? So it's a different ship, but
similar.
Clearly Martian design.
One of the containers that they had on the table that they were eating looks exactly like the container that Alex would always make the lasagna in.
Yes.
And I was like, it's all those little details. It's so subtle, but it's all right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to our point earlier, they don't ever miss the details in this show.
Gretz production design.
Yes.
Rocking it.
Production design is exceptional in this show.
Oh, it's God. But Naomi's having this weird interaction there on Inaros' ship, though, right? Because it's like it's like they both are holding her prisoner and trying to convert her at the same time.
Interesting.
To an extent.
The interaction with Marcos and Philip, I think, kind of showed that Marcos doesn't want her there. I never did. And was just kind of indulging his son. And his son really did it because it's almost like he's Darth Vader, like there's still a little bit of good left in him. You know?
You wonder.
Kind of like, because he's like, yeah, you're glad I brought you here or you'd be dead. I saved your life. So it's kind of like, as much as he's, complicit in the mass murder of, millions of Earthers, he did do something noble in bringing her there and then trying to save her life.
Yeah. And just real quick, no, we're not saying the ship they're on is the ship Alex and Bobby were watching. We're saying he already had some of them. So Inaros' main ship is Martian that he's already previously acquired, and he's getting more.
Exactly.
That's what Alex and Bobby saw.
Yeah, and Bobby at the end says this is Marcos's free navy.
Yes. Because he was talking about how he's in charge of the free navy, and this is what the fuck he's talking about. He's getting all these ships.
Yeah.
And this This is a good scene. It was so
The gimbal
effective.
seats.
Yeah, they're great.
Dude, this was the thing right after we finished watching the show. It was the first thing that my girlfriend and I talked about were these seats, because I had my my oldest daughter watch the episode with us.
Oh, really?
And she's 12 and she was blown away
Cool.
at how good this show is, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is one of the things that we talked about how the Expanse does things so right, because the maneuvering, the way that the seats have to rotate in the Razorback in all dimensions in order to, properly get them backed up against the direction of the thrust while they're moving around and making their maneuvers.
Yeah.
It was so badass.
It's so badass. And it's because it's designed to be a racing ship. Like, that's like the idea. It's designed to go faster than most ships. So you can, like, the ship can absorb more G's and therefore the pilot can handle more G's, because that's the idea. Because that's Julie Mao's ship.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, here comes the juice, Alex tells her, So.
I love it. On the back of the Expanse RPG, like the book that you buy that explains all the rules, it says "Here comes the juice" on the back of the book. It's like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, it's good, man. And
although, what the fuck's gonna happen now, right? Because they at the end of the episode, they dump their core. The bomb blows off right next to them, and they spin off into space.
So yeah, I mean, at this point, they're just derelict, cruising off on whatever particular
They're also
vector.
ballistic.
Yeah.
Ballistic? What do you mean?
That means that they are traveling at exactly the speed that they were accelerated to in that direction, affected by gravity alone.
But they'll still have the tea kettle thrusters, right? They can still slow down with that.
Can still as much as they have energy, considering that they just dumped their core.
That's a good
or
point.
whatever the thrusters charges are.
Yeah, I don't think
use those charges all you want. Those are reaction control thrusters. Those are not main thrust.
They're not main thrust. No, they're not. That's true. But you can. I mean, Alex has shown in the show that you can navigate with the thrusters, kinda. They did it when he did that little slingshot maneuver and stuff like that. So you can affect enough thrust to move the ship and probably break it, but maybe it would take a while. I don't know. We're gonna see what happens.
They were in hard burn at that time, so they were accelerated. And well, this is getting into the hard science of it, people. They were accelerated to a certain degree. They are going to continue to travel in that direction at that speed, except for gravity slowing them down, and reaction control thrusters don't do much. At best, you could use it to control the ship. Of course, you could do something weird, like if they were capable of being fully suited up, and if you have the ability to vent, you could use the reaction control thrusters to aim a external access and dump all the oxygen in the cabin, and that would do. Explosive decompression is a deceleration method, but we're getting into hard science now, and I don't want to lose many more of Jake D's.
Even if they were gonna,
I don't know. I think if you're a fan of the Expanse, you kind of have to enjoy the hard science. Honestly,
I think so too. But even if they were gonna do that, they were burning. I mean, it looked like 6-7 G's. I mean, Bobby had she had a nosebleed. They were close to stroking. And so they would have to somehow get their helmets on, get their suits on while they're moving that fast. They were going so fast, Alex could barely press the button to eject the core. So I don't know.
And as soon as the core's dumped, all G's are gone.
Yep.
That's part of it. Once they go ballistic, they are at zero. They are at 0 G.
Yeah.
They are just moving along with the ship.
When the acceleration stops, so do the G's.
God, physics is hard.
It's not that hard, really. I'm serious.
If I stop pushing you, you might keep going, but you're no longer feeling the push, right?
That's all
it is.
I just then why couldn't you get your thrust up to as 15 G's? My cat's trying to get on the counter, and then cut the thrust and still get the 15 G's worth of thrust, still go
because the
fast.
G's are the thrust. That's the acceleration. Velocity is the speed.
No, I understand.
Velocity.
Yeah, so to slow down, you would need as much force coming back.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the thrusters.
That's why you go halfway through
that.
the burn, you spin around, your last half of the trip is done in reverse. Okay. Which is also why those gimbals in the seats, which are so cool because that allows you to do pivoting and keep your body in the seat. Your gravity is always pressing you back. On the main ships, you see the whole rig of the ship twist around so that they can operate on the reverse in the reverse burn.
You're a smart guy, Draco. You're smart.
Yeah. The core is used for interplanetary travel. The core is used for that Epstein drive so that you, however deep science, it has not been explained fully, maybe in the books, but
it's not.
We need to leave something behind. Whether it is enough particulate matter or something like that, you got to leave something behind. The Epstein drive works on some kind of advanced fusion principle, but we don't know technically what it leaves behind. You got to leave something behind, and it does that. And we say, okay, we understand. It works.
It's advanced, but it's
that's literally what the novelist said. Like someone asked them, and they're like, what does it run on? They're like, efficiency.
We're letting them get away with this because all the other stuff is dead on.
Yeah, it's just the one leap you have to take, really. I guess, and the gates.
Yeah, I mean, not having the core means that their main engine can't fire. So they can't change their trajectory, and they also can't efficiently decelerate. So, I mean, they're just going in one direction, and there ain't much they can fucking do about it.
The only other unexplained thing is we assume that they might be on batteries because the core is also an energy production facility, so that might have been main power. Anything that doesn't run on main power might be lost.
Yeah, and it's on the larger ships, absolutely true. But this is the Razorback. It's a racing ship.
If it was kitted with an extra power generation, a cell, the hydrogen cell, whatever that thing is.
Fuel cell?
Fuel cell. If it had a fuel cell, it could generate power on the oxygen.
Yeah, but so it's I on pretty much all the other ships unbeheld, I think this is a true statement. Certainly any larger ship, they and what they were doing there was they were reigniting the single reactor, though, with fuel pellets, whereas they ejected the entire core, which is the reactor itself, in order to take the impact of the missile. So I think they're pretty screwed.
Racing vehicle wouldn't be able to keep an extra core because you don't want the extra weight.
Right. It's like a Porsche that races, doesn't have an air conditioner because you don't want any extra weight because you don't need it. You want it to streamline as possible.
I want an AC in my Porsche, damn it.
Well, you'll be in last place, Jake.
Well, but I'll look cool and I'll feel good. But they'll totally get found. I mean, they're not going off to nowhere because they're not writing Bobby off the show, only Alex.
That would be the saddest end. They just slowly drift away and then run out of oxygen and then die, and that's it. And it was meaningless. Like, what? that would be heartbreaking.
Alex is pointing out the Epstein drive. It's a thingamajig. Yeah,
the thingamajig.
That's how it works. Damn it!
It's the thingamajig.
Super science, my friends. Super science.
Why would they measure in G's, not Earth anymore? I mean,
take it away.
Fair question. And what I would tell you is because the human species originated on Earth. And so in terms of a measure of the amount of pressure that the human body can endure, it's a convenient method of measure.
It's still very
universal units. Yeah. Meters, seconds, everything has a unit.
They even point
unit
that out.
Based on meters per second squared. Meters per second squared is your acceleration that can be converted to a G. Especially since we've been doing the amount of G's that the human body can take in acceleration and deceleration since ever we've been in the space program.
That's interesting because it's even a point that they make in season 1. Anderson Dawes is talking to Miller and talking to one of the Belters, and he asks him how old he is, and he goes, tells him his age in Earth years, and he goes, even our time comes from them. It's like it is still a point that they like some of the Belters don't like that they use Earth related units, But I guess when it comes to science, it's like it has to be uniform for the sake of engineering. You can't do that. And also on Mars and stuff like that, the Marines trained in 1G so that if they ever invaded Earth, they would be prepared for the gravity. Like that was a big part of it. So it's relevant to the people within this solar system.
Absolutely. Besides, everybody needs to know about the G spot. So
the G spot.
At least where to find it.
That's funny.
I could not highlight that. I couldn't miss it.
It's a good one.
It should have come up when we were talking about Drummer, though. That's all I got to say.
Wait, look at that. What is it? What
Alexander is just going to make this. I'm just screwed up his name. I know I did.
Has no G.
His response to it.
That's like a Far Side comic panel.
It's Alex.
That's funny.
Sorry, Alex.
Wasale's comment: supercharged Destrier 4 high velocity F-spin. It's a high performance drive.
It's the specific drive that the Razorback had.
That's pretty interesting. I didn't consider that. That's pretty cool. I like that.
I'm gonna guess that comes from the book, or I mean, it could have been mentioned in the show, but that's gonna be the type of thing that just doesn't stick up here because I'm just a dumb monkey,
You can't keep it. I mean, it's a lot to keep straight, all this detail.
If they don't have to explain it, it's like calling it a thingamajig or super science or whatever. You don't have to explain it, except this one piece of information that they created a very high efficiency method of generation and propulsion, method of generation of energy and propulsion using a method of fusion. And that drive takes advantage of it very efficiently so that you don't have a whole lot of losses to heat and other things, and it just works.
It just works. And
accept that and move on.
Sometimes that's the best way to do it. Like if you go back to the Terminator, they just say
done forever.
Yeah, they say Skynet is an AI that does this. You don't ask how or when or what made it. It just works. You're like, okay, I trust that. I believe that. You don't need to over-explain at times. Sometimes under-explaining is the elegance.
You don't need to know that you need fuel for a hyperdrive for it to work, especially since you've never dealt with it before.
Why you gotta go there?
Because we started this thread, we're gonna finish it.
Yeah, it's just an interesting comment there on Beheld, because again, I'm only experiencing the Expanse through the show. I have not picked up the books. I do anticipate I will. But I'm reading through another book series right now, so it's got to come after that. So it's I mean, based on this, clearly Unbeheld has read all the books, and I've heard this before in previous observations about the show, where some of the storylines get combined, blended, switched around a bit. It'll get really confusing for you if Bull takes over for Alex in season 6.
Also, it's one of those things. Since we're all fans of Gary, and Gary has brought up that I don't know about you on Beheld, but Gary brought up that he was really dissatisfied with the character of Michio Pa in the book. And maybe this might be Ty Frank and Dan Abraham and the developers jiggering things just to improve the original narrative. I don't know. I don't know if you liked anything about Michio Pa, but that's one of those things that might be possible.
It makes sense.
I know that most fans of the book, not all, have said that most of the changes they've made in the show were, at minimum acceptable and understandable because of the medium transfer.
I think what happens with Bull's storyline in particular is, as I recall, he starts off book 3, and I think you start off from his point of view, and he has this whole like backstory about why he's going there and all this stuff, and he has like almost like this kind of like detective noir-y kind of story, and you see so much of the book from his point of view. I think that's why people are a little like kind of thrown off by it. It's been a little while since I've read that book, but I think that's people's like kind of what's up with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I will never be too critical of somebody being bothered, upset, or not liking changes from the book to the show, because I get that, right? Like, I can't stand the fact that Tom Bombadil is not in Lord of the Rings. It pisses me off. I hate that, but
Really?
I do love the movies.
A lot of
I
people
mean,
have said that.
it makes me just, it's like, he was one of the best characters in the damn book, and he's just not even there.
I
So
have a pertinent question, but I don't know if we want to sway the discussion.
ask away.
Specifically, even though he's an excellent character, even though he adds such a significant amount of breadth, his character adds a certain amount of breadth and understanding how much the wide world is more interesting. But focusing on Frodo and the hobbits, focusing on the greater world as it stands and his role in it, what does Tom Bombadil have to do with the War of the Ring and the ring itself?
Oh, I understand the choice, right? I mean, you're already dealing with
Yeah.
a very complex story.
You love Tom Bombadil and the idea. I mean, he doesn't even care about the ring. The ring has no power over him, and as far as he's concerned, the world will go on just fine.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't specifically know why. He doesn't say why he knows these things, but there is a character. I mean, he's almost beyond this story. He's beyond the wizards.
Yes.
But we do lose something, and this is what I was saying in the car about adaptation. You lose so many levels of depth to stories when you have to say what is really important to get certain points across.
Yeah, I mean,
but you hated missing him out from it. I know that has been a big point of a lot of people. I sort of accepted it myself, my own personal. But I hear it so many fans of the Tolkien original material that missing Tom Bombadil from the story was like, I can barely countenance this.
I mean, I don't like missing him, but I understand the creative decision, right? And I think for the most part, I'm sure there are book fans out there who, would be the person to prove me wrong if I made it a completely general statement. But most of the fans of the books, I do think, at least accept the changes that we've gotten in the show. So,
The Expanse. Yeah, I mean, as someone myself who's read them, I think often they're improvements. Like some of the things they did really well, like back in season 2, when Avasarala and Bobby hook up, when they become, a partnership. In the book, it just happens. She just kind of walks into her office and starts working for Avasarala. There's like no drama to it whatsoever. And there's this whole like office politics kind of subplot. And in this one, in the show, I think they do a great job of ratcheting up the drama and her having that escape thing and it becoming this really dramatic thing that like kind of culminates with the two of them working together. So I think in that instance, it worked better. And, there's a few things like that I think they changed just out of a necessity, but also to make it and to improve it. And so far, as someone who's only read 3 of the books, I haven't noticed any significant changes that I was like, that should have been a thing. It's an amazing adaptation as far as I can tell.
Yeah. And Elvis, that's one of the reasons I don't like Naomi. I mean, what you said here and what Marco said about her, I mean, in fairness,
Jesus
right?
Christ, Elvis looks like that guy Tiny. Fucking giant man.
That's intended as a compliment, I promise, Elvis.
He looks like a Viking. You're gonna go sack a village.
But no, I mean, what Elvis is saying there, I completely agree that that's kind of Naomi's big problem. That's the things that's one of the reasons my girlfriend can't stand her. Right? She just, she just doesn't have any connection to the character.
Did she always feel that way, or just recently?
She started feeling it a lot more strongly in season 4, but she didn't like her from the start. Honestly. So, is it behind me? Agree to be an absentee parent situation, complain about how someone raised their child. Yeah. So when you catch up to us at the far end of the stream, fuck Google. Yeah, it's that, you know, the other parents definitely space Hitler, or at least we're presenting him that way.
Yeah.
And
more like space Stalin.
Yeah, one or the others. What's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same idea, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to know more about those histories to make that judgment.
Well, I think he appeals to the. Well, I guess so did Hitler. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, So, I mean, yes, Naomi's absolutely an abused woman first, and I think in her own head, that's what she is first and foremost, which I get. I mean, and I understand that characterization, and we haven't had any real big details of her background with Marco, but I mean, absolutely, I believe this. It was probably near the nasty levels of what Amos had as a boy, right?
I don't think it quite goes that far. I mean, at least I've never heard anything hinted at to that level. I think it just had to do with the fact that she was radical. She was a radical OPA for a while and was with Marco and believed that he was right, and then realized that he's not. Like, he's a monster. He acts like he's for the people, but he's really for himself. And he's a murderer, and he's cold and soulless. So I think that was how she was abused. I don't know about that other part, but I mean, maybe I've just never heard that mentioned or hinted.
Yeah.
It's curious the way he is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, I mean, I agree. That's why she thinks about herself first, and I get that. And so, I mean, there's certainly a bit of empathy there, but at the same time, she still just grates on me, man. I mean, she's just always. I mean, think back when she gave the proto molecule to Fred Johnson, right? Way back, right? So she's always. And I remember one of your streams about that episode, Matt, and before I started watching, and how you were going on about how she just betrayed the whole crew of the Rossi, and you brought up more than one example where she was doing that.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it goes all the way back. And I mean, yes, she's got a background that explains her point of view, but and her perspective and her motivations, but that doesn't mean I have to like it or like her in those actions.
It's interesting. I guess I've kind of just been seduced by the fact that she's on the Rossi and she's part of the crew. But yeah, if you start kind of analyzing it, you can kind of see like, maybe. I don't want to admit
it is a few of the things that she says and how she says them. I mean, one thing that would have given a certain amount of value to her arguments would be that this abusive relationship would be continued to be played out right now. But right now, Marco is just manipulative. He's not openly hurtful. He's not openly demeaning. He's testing Philip against her, but he's not doing anything to her deliberately. Everything bad that happens to her so far is because of her actions.
Yeah.
It's all on her.
I want to address what Unbeheld is saying below.
But he's dead right, too.
I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I think the OPA was making some real serious headway with Fred Johnson and the kind of united front. That I thought they were, it wasn't perfect, but they were becoming more diplomatically recognized. They were becoming more politically respected. I think that they were on their way to becoming a functioning nation. And I think this kind of an action it's destroying that. Now it's impossible because now it's like tyranny or nothing. And it's like, well, most of the inners, at least not Earth, isn't going to accept his tyranny.
But we saw why Unbeheld is right in Drummer's ship. Okay, so remember that scene we were talking about earlier when Drummer and her crew, and they were reacting to what Inaros had done, and he made the announcement, to the entire solar system, basically saying, yo boys, I'm in charge. Mars is collapsing. Earth, I just blew the shit out of you with asteroids. Screw y'all. I'm the man, right? That was kind of the essence of his grand speech to the entire solar system. And he
wasn't even using I statements. He was fitting himself as the savior of his people,
right?
Yeah,
by saying that belters were free, by saying all these things. And one of the things is, I read Unbeheld's comments there, and the very first thing I saw, we've been comparing him to, quote, Hitler or Lenin or Stalin, and
it's actually not fair.
Until he used weapons of mass destruction, he was almost fitting himself to the role of Space George Washington.
And
he saw his oppressed people,
comment,
and he was going to free them, or something like that.
And this is Unbeheld's follow-up to that other one. It's a matter of perspective, right? Some people seeing him as a hero, some people are seeing him as the devil. So
measure everything he does, and what do you care about?
Yeah, he's not wrong. The Belters were mistreated severely.
Yeah, they were, but that's like an eye for a platoon. You know what I mean? Like they were, but like they weren't murdered by the millions. I mean, he just took out several million Earthers. Like I understand he's got a gripe, but I thought they were getting somewhere through genuine diplomacy. Murdering millions of people is not gonna. That's not an appropriate response, and B, it's not gonna rally anyone to your cause who's not already fanatically a part of it.
Yeah, and this is a pretty solid comparison to the OPA to the IRA.
That's a great point.
It really is.
It is a good one, because especially it starts off really noble and then turns out very terroristic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the IRA had a lot of legitimate gripes, and they got desperate and they went a bad direction with it.
Well, they also took it too far. I mean, it was more about, Northern Ireland didn't want to be free. They're Protestant. They were fine being part of England. They weren't into being free. It was these kind of radicals who just wanted this sort of completely independent island, and were doing it at all costs, killing civilians and stuff like that. Like in the 1920s, the IRA had a perfectly legitimate case. They were still a colony of Britain for 1,000 years. They're like, get the fuck out of our country. It's totally reasonable. And once they got Southern Ireland to be its own independent nation, the IRA wasn't accepting enough of that. They wanted to keep going and keep killing. And that's where they really lost their way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really good historic analog for the OPA.
It really is. That's great.
It really is.
Yeah. But the OPA is also not only are they displaced is probably the wrong word. They are a population that is utilized. They are functional slaves to both Earth and Mars.
It's true.
And essentially, they have been used. We don't actually know, or at least part of the thing is that all that we have right now is the reactions of several of the OPA members and the OPA, the people who incite and talk and stand in front of groups of the Belters and say, these are the things that have happened to us, and so on and so forth. Realistically, as a slave race that numbers in the millions, that lives as Sin was mentioning in this episode, that Earth and Mars starve them of water. Earth and Mars have them breathing on barely enough air. And if that is the case, functionally, these people are held beneath the boot of their overlords.
Yeah.
And even if you only kill 1 out of 10, that's still seen by the 9 remaining, or and you're building this population, this sort of resentment over and over. And I think that's where we are with this. It's not so much, I mean, Eros was like the first thing, and that was done by a corporate maneuver. They didn't care about all these millions of people that were destroyed on Eros.
Well, I think that's kind of the point. Is
Mhm.
that a lot of what was done under corporate interest, was done inhumanly. It's because the way
But
that
they still cited that it was an inner corporation. The corporations are
No, no,
inner.
that's what I'm saying. Like,
functions.
because according, it's still from the point of view of the inners, these
Inulata.
aren't nations, these are colonies of Earth. Like, because if you think about when they were set up, they're set up as mining colonies.
Yeah, even corporate outposts, even
Yeah.
less than colonies.
They're not like, to them, they're not people. It's just, it's so much, not that they're not people, they're not a nation. It's just like, you guys work for us. What are you talking about? So it's just gone on and gone on. And I think like the OPA has a lot of legitimate gripes, which is really what's so compelling about them.
Yes.
But it's almost like Marcos, after achieving a level of peace that was unprecedented, and a level of diplomatic power that was also unprecedented, he's gone back and kind of destroyed all that, and actually made it even more, probably more antagonistic than it's ever been, by launching the largest attack ever from the belt, or the Earth. This is the most destructive thing that either side's ever done.
Yeah, and Elvis is dead on the money here, right? Is Marco right? Yeah, but in terms of his motivations, right?
He's right.
Also, he brings up Fred, but Fred is seen by a lot of the Belters as a Judas goat. He is Earther. He is not of the Belter, and that's a big thing for Belters. They see everybody that is Inyalauda as outsider. If you're not Beltalauda, you are not one with the cause.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's like the no true Scotsman fallacy. It's like, okay, I'm not pure enough by your eyes. It doesn't mean that I'm any less righteous or any more fighting for the same thing and have the same amount on the line. He's actually got more on the line because he's seen as a traitor by his own people. So he really has no people. And if the belt don't accept him, he's got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he risked it all and he died for it.
He's a martyr. He's a literal martyr.
But a martyr to who?
To the belt.
I mean, even the Belters don't. A larger portion of the Belters, who in the show that we've seen, we know essentially Drummer and at least some of her family would see him as a martyr. They understood.
Yeah, and everyone who lives on
how few of the Belters would actually see that.
I don't know. I think most of the people that live on Tycho respect Fred, and I think most of the OPA factions respect Fred. I think it was the ones that were just the more fringe, the more Anderson Dawes sympathetic, the more Marcos sympathetic, the ones who wanted violent retribution were the ones that didn't see it his way.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no, right? Because now, in fairness, it's coming from the mouth of somebody from the Inaros faction, but they don't like Naomi because of her relationship with an Earther, right? I mean, we get into that in this episode. And they almost see Naomi as a traitor to the belt because she's in love with an Earther, right? They all know she's got the thing with Holden and whatever. And, they even, they're trying to drive into her head in this episode about the fact that, look, you think any of those planets beyond the gates are for us? They're not. You went to one and you couldn't survive,
Yeah, it's a purity argument. You're not pure enough. You're not belt enough. Even though you're born out here, you fight for. But that was the same thing that Miller was facing. They would always look at him as like a Inyalauda or whatever they would say, like a traitor to your people.
Well, Inyalauda is inners. The traitor to your people is the other word. It's older. It's from the first season. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but they called him that because he worked for an Earth company. And it was like this kind of this purity war that I think, and Holden faces that a lot. And that's what's so complex about the whole situation is it's like it's tribal. People are caught up with the violent, like the fury of their tribe versus what's noble and right for all,
By the way, writers out there in our small audience, this is not just doing diversity right. This is putting an idea on the idea of racism and classism. These isms. This is how you shine a light out of it and say bad. This is good. This is good ways to say this is why these things are bad. This is why we need to make them go away. not externalizing internal things. And it's wonderful how these shows do this and put the light on it and say, this is why we fight against it. This is why we cannot countenance these things.
It's a tremendous.
But this is also why we should not allow ourselves to become the enemy.
And to not get radicalized, I think, is a big part of it too, because of how dangerous that is, and how much it generally just leads to bloodshed and more division.
Yeah. I wasn't planning to go down this road, but what the hell? Let's go down it, right? Because it's a good topic, right? So this show is how you do any type of messaging or theming or whatever it is that you want to get it across, and you weave it into the story that you're telling. In an intricate and important way to the overall story that you're telling. I mean, we've gone to a bunch of different places. Like, we're talking about making comparisons of the OPA to the IRA. We're seeing, terrorism. We're seeing the motivations behind it, right? And we're seeing, in some ways, exhibitions of, your bad isms, right? And it's being portrayed as part of a story that we're just so enthralled with that, we're seeing the messages that they have about certain moralities, but it does absolutely nothing to detract from the story that we're experiencing. Right.
Exactly right.
And this is how you do it. Hey, BBC. Hey, Disney, Marvel, CBS, you fucking morons. If you want to send a political message, because, hey, make no mistake, there are political messages in The Expanse.
Of course, but it's not a message. It's more about principle.
Right. It's right. The thing that they want to project is not detracting away from the viewer's experience of the show at all.
The comparison that I was thinking of when I was doing my stream earlier was that movie Bright. Did you ever see that movie Bright with Will Smith?
I turned it on, but I never finished it.
I thought it was excellent. I loved it. It's one of those movies that just does those things really well. But it did that in a fantasy lens, where it showed the underprivileged and the overprivileged and the kind of dissent amongst the groups and why and where that comes from. But to me, it did it in such an objective way that it was like, oh, we can kind of analyze like just observe America's, class differences in a way that isn't so subjective. So as we can just kind of look at it. But it's like
you remap those things into the fantasy world, and then you can see it. And instead of having to see it personally, you can see it outside, and then allow people to rationally map that onto your world.
That's exactly where I was going with that. Exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the show does it great, and Bright did it great, and I think that's the real genius of genre, is it allows you to go there without it feeling too close to home.
Yeah. And another thing is that you already mentioned one good thing, Jake D, about this being the map to do it. We also have, there are people discussing in the chat. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to screw up all your names, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing is that we sometimes come to disagreement beyond two things. But because we don't demonize one another, we can come to a sort of agree to disagree, as was mentioned up here, because we're open to everybody bringing something to table. And if you don't necessarily come to it doesn't come down to you must think the way I do or you are bad,
right,
or something like that.
No, look at
we can still have these discussions, and we can still hash it out and still remain at least
civil.
Well, if not friends, we can be civil.
But we're all having that discussion right now. I mean, we almost all have different points of view. The chat has different points of view, and it's just a conversation. We're just having a debate about it. No one's like, fuck this, I can't, this is not how it is. Like, we're all just having a conversation, and it's because this is the way you explore ideas in this kind of way. It's, I don't want to belabor the point, but when you're too close to it, it's hard to be objective at times. It's, it's too sensitive, and it hurts, and that's why people can't do it. And genre is a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely. And it's Jennifer Cisco just popped in. Hail, Jennifer Cisco. Hey, congrats on your wrench over there on Gary's channel.
Way to go.
And her comment, next week's is going to be an ass clencher, and yes, it is, man. I mean, we got so many things to deal with, right? So the Rossi's not fucking going anywhere.
That's a good question. Is it literally not going anywhere? Because can it be powered up again?
They got to do something about that gamma code, whatever that is. I mean, this is one of the things, is that even though Naomi's plot was going south there with the characterization that they decided to place upon her and the issues that have already made something. Number one, you have Corral, the other lady that doesn't like seeing her there, who came in and basically spun her into this idea that there's only one way you're going to leave this ship, and she immediately decides she's going to take the assassin's way out. And then you said something, Matt. I thought about it a different way when she is stopped by her son and escorted off the bridge as Marco is watching, and she palms the knife that she was going to kill him with.
Mm-hmm.
She said, when he said, "I saved you," and she's like going, that sudden realization happens. In my mind, he knows, and he said nothing, that he just tried to kill Marco.
Did he know, though? Because he
was watching her.
He didn't take the knife from her.
I think
he didn't take the knife. He didn't take the knife from her. He left. He basically left her go. He was watching her after when he and Marco are talking there on the head of the bridge, the intermediate. He watches her come on. Then he goes back around down to his station. You don't get to see him, but I get the impression, I may be reading into it and I may be assuming a lot, but that he was watching her, and when she revealed, he could have seen it. And he remember, this is all about Marco trying to use his charisma, his hold over his son, to make him see who she really is, and that he can be stronger without her, and all of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
But besides this idea of making her into the assassin, almost getting her killed, now her son may have saved her. And the very next thing she does is the next step to use sin to pass on that message, because not only did Corral say there's only one way you're getting off the ship, she also brought up the Gamma code, and she flags on that and manages to get Sin's terminal and warn Holden before he blows himself to bits.
Yes. Yeah. And it which, that was a good scene, man. I liked that one. And it was a little Deus Ex Machina, right? Because it was the moment, right?
It's suspense. It's just film suspense. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying how I interpret it was both. I think it was, he stopped her from stabbing Marcos to stop that. But also, I think he was saying, I saved your life. Like, I got you out of there because we were going to kill you. And so that was what was he had a soft spot for her. And had he not done that, she would have blown up on the Rossi. And I think that's where that's where she got the idea in her head that the code was like in the fusion reactor, right? That was my impression of how that all went down.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to go to, I'm with Sally here that the fact that he didn't disarm her in that elevator says to me he didn't know that that she was trying to kill Marco, because I can't envision any reason. It just there's nothing that gets into my brain that lets me get
Logically there.
Yeah, if he knew she had
she's
the
free
knife,
on the
he takes
ship.
it.
She got the knife.
She's free on the ship. She could get another knife.
That was
she could
my
get
thought.
another tool. She could get another club.
Yeah.
She is free to move about the ship until she actually attacks Sin, contacts someone outside the ship, then they incarcerate her.
That was my impression too, because she got the knife from the mess hall. It was just a normal knife where anyone else could get it.
She could go get another one.
Yeah, but
she could go do something. She could hack the ship. She's locked out, but she's not completely incapable. She is, after all, the smart person who Corral wanted gone in the first place. She is almost a threat to these people just being there.
Yeah.
And basically, so Marco Inaros allows his son to keep her there, this person who is functionally dangerous and probably smarter than most of them.
Yeah.
And she's free to walk about until the end of the episode.
Yeah.
I think
saying.
either way, the knife detail is a weird one. I think because it's tough.
It's either not explained. Or
because they don't overlook details like that in this show. So it seems like it would be addressed. I mean, to me, the way it was played was that he stopped her from stabbing Marcos. Well, why else would he have done that? And the way the show played it, she had the knife out and she was reaching back to stab him. And then that's when Philip grabbed her. So from my interpretation of the images I saw, he knew what was going on. And then it is weird that he let her have the knife without addressing it. So it's either the show played it kind of little cheaply by him not knowing and getting too close, or he didn't address it, which is weird. I think either way, it is kind of a weird,
and we might know more when they actually do the Ty and that other guy show tomorrow.
Oh yeah, Ty and that guy, yeah.
Yeah, well, now here's a question though. Perhaps it's intentionally ambiguous.
That's true. That's possible too, because maybe Philip's just straight up a good guy at some point. That's possible too.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible Philip ultimately gets swayed by Naomi at the end of the season.
That's my impression.
I mean, that's if we're doing imagining what ifs, that's certainly a way forward, isn't it? Because if he actually took his mother off of his ship and brought her to Marco's ship, he's kind of on her side.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
And
that almost makes him an unknown on that crew as well.
And traditional writing structure would suggest it too, because arc, like you always start like on the opposite of where you end up. So if you're good at the beginning, you end up at bad, and so on and so forth. Like usually, like, you know what I mean? There's like, that's what arc is, especially if it's a character like that. So it would make sense that there's room for his redemption. He might have like a Clarissa Mao kind of redemption where he sacrifices himself or does something noble at the end to save somebody or change something. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's that far-fetched, especially the way it's starting to, the little breadcrumbs of that maybe happening.
Yeah, and it's I mean, this is how I experienced it though. Is I saw it as he was just pulling her away from Marco because she. I mean, he even said, you're not supposed to be here, right? Essentially, So Unbeheld saying it was a poorly written moment, and he cared enough so Marco wouldn't shoot her on the spot, right? But yeah, and
the fact that we're arguing this much about it is, if you can have several people come to several different opinions about it, it might not be 100%. I mean, we're not talking unreliable narrator stuff all the time here, when all of our eyes are watching this and scrutinizing it and caring about it so much that if we come to different outcomes, it's like,
yeah,
maybe there are several different outcomes, and you should hash it out in writing more. Directing and
it seems.
Unbeheld makes a really good follow-up comment here, though, right? They've got a full Martian med lab on this ship.
Oh, that's a good point.
This knife's not gonna fucking kill him. So.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's not magic. If she severs his jugular and he bleeds out, I mean, that doesn't take very long.
Yeah,
you stab someone through the neck. I don't know.
I mean, that's part of it is that. I mean, it's an excellent point, so I'm not going to take anything away from that.
No, it's not that point at all.
Any sort of way that she could actually cut him puts him in a threat, because in the lack of
they don't have gravity.
In the lack of gravity, if they don't have gravity, and internal bleeding can kill you as much as that. The things that you can do, they've got all these things. They got patches to patch it. You got to make sure that there's no internal bleeding, so they must have anticoagulants. But can you do that? Can you still administer it in time? Is there stuff like on the bridge? Probably. Thinking several steps ahead. Is there going to be people on the ship that are going to know and are going to be ready for that? Well, hopefully, since they're using the ship as their base, they're probably trained somehow. So, yes. But I also say that that Naomi is doing something that is an emotional decision. She's become the assassin, and she's going to give her life to take Marco Inaro's life if she can possibly do it. Yeah. It's not necessarily rational, but she is also being this irrational.
I know she's not John Wick, but you stab someone in the neck like 3-4 times. I don't know what. I mean, there's not a lot of medical science that can save you from that. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, man, Unbeheld, you are on fire in the chat tonight, my man. So glad you're here.
He's he or she, I'm presuming.
I assume.
It is a cute puppy avatar, so you know.
It kind of looks like the Unsea Juice dog. You ever seen that meme?
By the way, I don't call that a butter knife. That was a fairly large knife.
That was a big old
steak knife, man. That was a good sized steak knife.
That would completely take care of a jugular in a second.
No question.
Yeah, and so I mean, Elvis, this is a good question, right? And it was brought up a little bit earlier by Wasali as well. About who's really behind this, because Marco doesn't have the kind of money necessary to buy full-on Martian warships. There's money behind this, and
that's a good point.
So
I haven't read that much, but there is something going on that I'm just going to say from the books that I do know about that I haven't read. There's at least one more thing going on.
No spoilers.
Yeah,
that's not a spoiler. That's just saying, do you want to know more?
Yeah, and then Diego, hey, this is I like this. We were talking about the scenes in the prison earlier, and that one guard, it's
point.
he fell. It was. I mentioned earlier that my 12-year-old daughter was watching with me, and when that elevator collapsed, she was, "Oh, he's definitely dead now."
I sure can't argue with that.
Well, if the fall didn't kill him.
Yeah, that was a really good sequence. That was probably my favorite sequence of the show. That whole thing with the elevator shaft. I really enjoyed that. I like the tension of them having to rely on that guy who's most likely going to kill them all. I thought that was really interesting, and that guy was actually pretty funny. Like when they opened the door and he's like, "Good day," or whatever he said, like all silly with a silly voice. Yeah, that was pretty fun.
I did love how they paid that off from was that in episode 2 or 3? I forget where.
I
It was,
think
it was in 3, wasn't it? When he goes to the prison?
I think it was the last one, the one that just happened.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was.
Yeah,
just,
but they did.
When they first go in, yes,
Yeah.
that was a payoff from last episode.
Yeah.
See that guy? We've got to have a bunch of guards because everybody is enhanced on this level.
Yeah.
So, and they show him, and what's his deal? Oh, he's a what do they call him? They refer to him because he just won't leave.
Yeah, he wouldn't get rid of his mods. He didn't be removed. Yeah,
he was one of the ones who just refused to have it done.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good payoff. I liked seeing that.
Voluntary.
Volunteers.
It was cool to see Amos like taking control, being the boss, being the leader. That was fun.
It was.
You know,
It was.
That often.
Tiny had a tiny brain. Yes, he did.
Call me Tiny again. Call me Tiny now.
I like you call it. He said he suplexed him. That's great. He did. Totally suplexed
He
him.
really did, man. It was all right.
He shot him. I mean, we're in full spoiler territory now.
Yeah,
She grabs
It's
the
in the
guy's
title of the
gun
stream.
with his
You're all
hand.
good.
She grabs the guy's gun with her hand, shoots him from behind. Amos looks down. He looks down. He turns around. Amos grabs him and whoa!
You know what? You're
There
forgetting one step.
You suplexed your own studio there, Draco.
Yes, I did.
Draco, you forgot one step. He kicks him squarely in the balls.
Yes.
I did forget that one. That was very important to get him off balance.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was definitely my favorite scene of the episode. I was very much missing Avasarala though, because something's happening with the power structure on Earth, and presumably Christian's gonna make a play. Because they don't even know who the fuck's in charge of the government right now.
Yeah, is that woman is what's her name dead? Is Nancy dead?
Effectively.
Yes.
We don't know. We didn't see her die.
Someone who knows the books would be able to answer this for us, or at least what the books did on it.
Jeez, don't.
No, I'm just saying somebody could.
Right.
But the thing is that for what we've seen is that plane went down hard. It lost its wing in the explosion. The loss of signal doesn't mean anything, but as far as they were able to mention, they could not find out anybody in the chain of command. Right. That was answered in the last episode. So it's entirely open field right now, and this is not a moment in time for Earth to not have someone in charge making pertinent decisions right now.
Yeah, so, no, I agree. I think it's probably likely that Avasarala will be in power again. I mean, I think that's my impression, but I don't like.
I'm still working on Shore. I'm still working on a regular name.
Agadashulu. Just call her Chrissy. She can be your favorite stripper, right?
Christian Avasarala. Working on it. I'm still screwing up Alec's name, so we're not gonna go there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't read the books. People who've read the books obviously know if she's dead or not, but I sure thought she died. So
that's I mean, she probably is, but
we can assume that.
Yeah, we'll just. I'm a wait and see guy, though. I mean, I want to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure we find out soon enough. Probably next week.
That we did get that Christian moment in the last episode. That was the one thing that I loved putting in that little preview. You get to see Avasarala being the elemental Avasarala, the Avasarala that we love.
Yep.
She's going around and she's slinging F-bombs and she's saying, "Get me these people, and I need to know this information, and do this now or everybody's dead."
I love her. She's great.
Dude. She's my favorite character in the show.
I'm sorry, she's beat out just a little bit by Amos, but I love her too.
Yeah.
Drummer is my queen.
If you didn't get to see, they were both on the last week's Ty and That Guy episode. Avasarala guest starred.
Yeah, those are. I haven't tuned into those myself yet, but I've heard they're excellent.
Those are way better than the stuff they packed with The Boys. I'm seriously.
Yeah.
Well, it's a much better show than The
Goes
Boys.
without saying,
so,
yeah,
you know.
I'm just saying it's from the same producers, and they're actually doing it right this time.
Is it the same producers or the same platform?
Well, the same company. They're same footed. They were both footed by
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah.
I would guess though it's different. Like I would almost get it.
It's a different. Well, it's one thing I noticed about this when you look at the list of what was the number of production crew on the CBS STD. I think they said there were like 26 producers or something in there. This show has a significant number of producers, and apparently, I mean, I was like going through this. This has quite a few executive producers, producer, and I'm going like, and they're not screwing it up. That's not bad.
Producer doesn't mean shit anymore, though. It's like that term.
It could be anything from getting coffee to making sure that the production has facilities, money, resources, all of that stuff.
Of different things. Yeah. I mean, I've been credited as a producer before. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and Diego, that's we've got into this, I don't know, probably about halfway through the stream, maybe 30, 40 minutes into it. Personally, yeah, that's what I think they may be setting up based on what we saw in this episode. But I mean, I guess we'll find out, right, by the time we get to the end of the season. So the rest of the guys think they may recast, but I'm thinking they're probably going to.
I'm not honestly certain what they do. The idea, I think my major point was the loss of Amos is going to be significant. The loss of Alex, and not
Amos
is going to be significant for the show.
Don't you put
well,
that
he got out. He got out of the hole. He's okay. Amos is fine, people.
Everything around him is dust.
Literally.
But he stands apart. Well, he doesn't stand apart because he's actually got someone that he can help now. He's got
Clarissa.
He's got Clarissa Mao. Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty wild.
That is.
Yeah, and I'm with you there, Elvis. I don't think we're going to see the Rossi flying much this season either. I mean, we are halfway through, and it has not left space dock yet, and it ain't going anywhere next week. I don't think. They got a deal,
but we're just gonna. I mean, just because. What's her name? Just because that one who I do not have the name sitting right in front of me, but I thought I did. Just because she was the best engineer on the group, they're on Tycho Station, which has several engineers. Maybe it's not shut down permanently, but the thing is, what does it take for them to find this software incursion in their system? Hopefully it's not that, because seeing the Rossi sitting out for the rest of the season, that's it on Beheld Sakai.
I couldn't imagine.
Seeing the Rossi sit out the rest of the season would be...
Yeah.
Oh, it'll fly.
It'll fly.
To Elvis's point, we're not going to see it much, right? I don't think it leaves... If it leaves Space Dock next week,
it's like halfway through.
It's like the end of the episode next week. I mean, my personal guess, right? I don't know for sure, obviously.
Into the fight.
Yeah, they need
into
to.
The fight.
They need to. I mean, she's got to leave Tycho soon. So, I'm thinking it's the end of episode 6 next week is probably when she gets out of there.
That's my hope, Chris Hatfield.
Yeah, I mean, they have to spend some time taking care of the sabotage. I mean, that's not something that's going to be just instant.
Waiting for it.
And then, no. That's not what happened at all. The reactor was sabotaged by the chief engineer of Tycho Station, who was in charge of and the lead engineer on all the repairs on the Rossi.
Absolutely.
She was
heavily featured in 1 to 3 fixing that ship.
Yep.
And talking about how she was basically the ornery engineer who the owner of the ship is hanging about, and she goes, it takes 5 times as long if you watch us and all of that stuff. It's like she was intimate with the Rossi to fix it.
Absolutely.
She could have done 50 things to make sure it wouldn't fly, but we find out that there's this thing that could make the ship blow up this episode, and it's like, don't blow her up.
Yeah, and yeah, unbeheld, exactly. I mean, there was a scene early on in the season where her and Holden were talking about the repairs, and she told him, "Hey, I can do it in 12 hours. You know, I can do it in 6 if you don't want it to work, and I can do it in 18 if you want me to do it right." And he told her, "Yeah, do it in 18." So yeah, she was all over that ship. So no, it totally believable that she could fuck with that ship. But that didn't. That took no pause for me.
Perfect sense. You know, it's interesting. It's actually kind of foolish that Holden didn't catch that, because he was there the whole time, like you just pointed out, of her fixing the ship, and then he just gets right in it after they have her captured as a clear saboteur.
Yeah, but he's also off the ship a fair bit. We see him talking with Johnson in Johnson's office, and
but he knows that she was involved in the repairs, so that should have been a real big.
He should have thought of that himself. That was yeah. No, I'm with you on that, man. But no logs, only person, no double checks for anything. Well, no, there were. I mean, if you remember in last episode when everything went to shit at Tycho, I mean, half of the half of the crew on Tycho was with Inaros. So I mean, it was.
Not about half.
It was a sizable number.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, Holden has been trusting the repairs into the Rossi since season 1. I mean, they fueled them up, repaired them multiple times. I mean, that's like his home port, essentially. He's got no reason to doubt that they would do it, that they would, that he would need to double check. Although it is just odd that he didn't catch it. That's my thing. It's just like,
he certainly should have thought, like, wait a minute, this chick was in charge of repairing my ship.
Yep. Right. Now everything should be thrown into question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what that was. When he's leaving the cell. Remember when he's leaving the cell? Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That was your girlfriend caught that too. And she was like, oh yeah. When she was talking about him coming back. Oh,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. And yeah, Holden's not an engineer.
Yeah, but he's not an idiot either. I mean, he figures out stuff pretty quick. He's pretty sharp.
I mean, he was able to effect basic repairs himself.
Yeah.
We saw that a bunch of times. I mean, in fact, it's kind of a necessity for anyone on the ships at all, any of the ships, right? Whether they're hauling ice or whether, they're on a gunship like the Rossi, everybody has to have at least remedial basic repair skills.
Especially in the belt.
Yeah, I mean, think about when they were captured in season 1, before they got out on the Tachi, right? Ultimately becomes the Rossi, and in the cell that they were held in, the shrapnel came through from the battle, and they had to seal the air leaks in their cell.
He wasn't there for that, though.
No, but I mean, that's my point. Everybody has to have basic repair skills.
Yeah,
but when they're repairing the antenna later, that is also Amos and Holden working on the antenna. They are doing the particulars to try to get that radio up and running again in the first season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is something if you're on a Belter ship, say that you've got a crew of 6 to 20. Certain people have certain specializations, but everybody has to be ready to patch a hole, short a circuit, open a circuit, be able to access anything in the ship. You need everybody to be multitasked so that if you need it in a moment's notice, that's another one of those real science things. You just have to have people ready and on the floor to do these things at a moment's notice if something goes wrong, because everything in space is trying to kill you.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know about this one, Unbeheld. I mean, the idea that Holden just couldn't fathom being betrayed on Tycho before it actually happened, right? And he understood what was going on when they were trying to rip off the proto-molecule. I mean, they captured her, as a traitor and a saboteur. And he knows she worked on his ship.
Yeah.
So this one, I mean, you have been on fire tonight, my man, but I'm not with you on this one. I mean, Holden personally apprehended her as a traitor.
Yep. And she was the lead engineer, the lead, whatever, the lead on
Yeah.
that project. It does seem a little strange that he didn't consider that.
Yeah.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we considered it, Matt, when we were discussing this episode previously this week. You brought this up because I didn't get to that point before you did.
Okay.
She spent a lot of time on this ship. As soon as she was revealed, she shot Fred. At that moment, everything about her would be considered suspect if you are thinking about these things. Yeah. But we brought that up, and it turned out in this episode that they were ready to get on that ship. I mean, they were ready to run it up. They're ready to run that ship up the flagpole, get everything, go through the checklist, and take off.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't think about it. He didn't do anything about it. Even on top of that, after she stops them leaving, if there's anything you want to say, and then she says, wait. It says, you want to say something? I'll see you when you get back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She was basically going out of her way to let him know there's so much there. He should have. Yeah, it's weird that he overlooked that. It's really bad.
The very first thing I said when I saw I wasn't even certain what the gamma program, whatever that thing was, but from my point of view, it was like in my head, I was a little bit run at least a basic diagnostic, an engineering diagnostic.
Sure.
And it didn't seem like they were doing that. To me, it was a hole just because of that moment, just because she was a traitor, she was all over that ship. At least something that might show up in a cursory scan. It probably wouldn't, because that would be part of the thing. You'd create this software to be invisible. It wouldn't work. They'd blow up anyway. You needed Naomi to call and to warn them down. But still, he got on it. And
it's essentially like having like the Taliban service one of your tanks, and you're like, they're probably fine. It's like, no. Like, let's double check. Make sure the Taliban didn't put any explosives in our tank.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and that final Alex Bobby scene was absolutely, I mean, it was fucking great. And who's going to pick them up right now that they're adrift? Exactly. It's, I mean, you don't have too many candidates. I mean, you pretty much, you kind of have Drummer, and I mean, who else is flying around out there right now?
Drummer.
It's pretty much just Drummer, right?
From our crew.
At least that they know. If we're going to make space that small, I wouldn't mind them saying that someone miscellaneous just picked them up, and then it's like, okay, how do we get out of this now?
Yeah. Hey, Jake, I got a boogie, brother.
Oh yeah, buddy. It's probably about time we start wrapping her up. We've been rolling for going on 107 hours now.
Every day.
But yeah, I mean, end of the day. So, give me your final thoughts on the episode, and plug anything that you want to plug, and we will wrap her up, my man.
Okay. This season is exceeding my expectations in pretty much every way imaginable. I can't believe how good it is. I think we found a few minor plot holes here, but it's nothing that's going to ruin my experience. I mean, this is my favorite show ever, and I think we're looking at maybe the best season of TV, one of the best ever, and I'm very grateful for every second we get. So I have no real complaints, no genuine complaints. And if you want to hear more endless talk about The Expanse, go over to my channel, check out Foul Ball Productions. Also, I'm putting out another episode of my podcast, The MFers, should be out tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for that. It's kind of what we talk about, the same stuff, but a little different. Some other topics that I just want to cover that aren't exactly The Expanse or sci-fi or nerddom.
Fair enough, man. I just dropped your link in the chat to your channel. So if you have not subscribed to Matt at Foul Ball Productions, obviously good friend of mine, I highly recommend that you do. And all right, Draco.
Yeah.
Anything you want to plug? Final thoughts on the episode?
I suppose as I mentioned to you earlier, I was probably going to do another teaser I posted something on my channel. I put a little teaser on my channel, just a little short thing, as if I was going to try to convince someone to get interested in the show, and I think I might do another one of those. But other than that, I'm always with like these guys talking about this stuff, and with all these wonderful people in chat who are just, geez, love having all you people on here, especially all these informed opinions. And Jake D is blowing up here. He's doing absolutely great, starting out his channel, and then you got Matt doing his own thing, and all these guys deserve a follow. I might do something more. Other
Well,
than
if
that,
nothing else,
thank you.
You can join folks like us on their channels, even if you're not dropping stuff on your own. But yeah, no, I really liked that. You know, do you want to know more? Sort of teaser video. It was very you. So, all right, I am Jake.
Would you like to know more?
Exactly, and Matt. Great friend of the channel, and always welcome here pretty much anytime I'm turning on a stream. And we are over there on your channel doing fun things like reviewing Die Hard and reviewing The Expanse, and whatever else seems to make sense. And Draco, of course, has been somebody with my channel here almost since I started it, a frequent guest on my Sunday evening shows, howling about entertainment. All right, everybody. Really appreciate everybody stopping by. We had as many as about 20 viewers on the live stream today, which for a channel with not even 200 subs, that's really good, man. The chat was just absolutely insane tonight. Really appreciate everybody's contributions, because it's only with your interaction that, us in the panel, can keep talking about things for like this for so long without running out of things to go to, because it's a two-way street, not just between us here on the show, but between you guys in the chat and us all together. And it's what makes this just such a cool medium to be a part of, and something that we all enjoy so very much. But again, thank you so much. We will be doing more coverage on The Expanse in coming days and future streams. I'm sure we will probably end up over on Foul Ball Productions at some point this week. I know you're having a New Year's Eve stream this week.
Likely.
Right. Yeah, New Year's Eve. I'm going to have kind of like an open stream. We're just going to talk about like whatever, just kind of bullshit, sum up the year, have fun,
There you go.
Drink a little bit, have a little fun.
Hey, why not? And certainly we'll be back here for my Sunday evening show, howling about entertainment. And I will be going live with a reaction to episode 3 of The Stand sometime tomorrow evening, probably around the same time I started this one up. But thank you, everybody. Oh, my goodness. It's been a great stream tonight. And we will talk to you later.
Later.